Okay, in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at factoring our quadratics that aren't special patterns. Okay, so ax squared plus bx plus c, and we're going to focus primarily when the a is not 1. So just as a review, a quadratic equation is anything with a second degree. Okay, so there's my second degree polynomial, and there's multiple ways to factor a polynomial. There's guessing and checking, factor by grouping in, another option that's called slip and slide. Each has their advantages and disadvantages, but I'm going to focus on primarily number 1, option 1, because it's closest to us distributing. If you're really struggling with factoring, I can try to individually show you factor by grouping or the slip and slide option. All right, so here's my steps for you. If we're going to go with guessing and checking, the first thing that I need you guys to do is to write out all of the factors of A. And when I say all the factors, I'm saying write out all the numbers that can multiply to give me that. So factors mean two numbers that multiply to be A, for example. Write out all of the factors of C. Write out all of the two numbers that can multiply to give you C. And then we're going to guess which factors we think they're going to choose for A and C. Little side note, start with the factors that are closer to together as you're guessing. It's usually going to be one of these, but not always. All right, so then we're going to put our chosen factors into our binomials, and then we're going to check that outer and inner product and see if they combine to B. If they don't, we're going to switch the factors. If they still don't work, then we're going to guess new factors. And then we need to pay attention to our signs. So, when we're looking at signs, if the C is positive, then the factors of C must either both be positives or both negatives. And you're going to have to pay attention to the B to help you choose. If the B is a positive number, then you're going to choose the two positive signs. If the B is a negative number, you're going to choose both negative signs. And this is only if the C is positive. If the C is negative, so if I have to have two numbers that multiply to be a negative, then I have to have one of each sign. And so I kind of shorthanded it. If this is what it looks like, I know I'm going to have two positives. They have to multiply to be a positive, and they're going to have to add up to be a positive B. If they multiply to be a positive, but they add up to be a negative, they're going to have to both be negatives. If they multiply to be a negative, I don't really care what this is. It has to be one of each. All right, so let's take a look at our first example of factoring. All right, so remember, this is my A, this is my B, and this is my C. All right, so I'm going to write down the factors of A. What two numbers multiply to be 2? Well, I only have one set of factors. 1 times 2 is 2. I also need to write down the factors of C. All right, so I need all the numbers that can multiply to be 15. So I always start with 1. So 1 times 15. 15 is not divisible by 2. 15 is divisible by 3. 3 times 5. I could say, is 15 divisible by 4? No. Is 15 divisible by 5? Yes, and I already have it up there. Okay, so now I'm going to guess. And I'm going to say, well, I only have one option here for the A's. And out of these two, I'm going to start with the 3 and the 5. Okay, so now we're going to check. So for my two binomials, I think that the A's, which are the first products, 1x times 2x is 2x squared. So in the FOIL method, I know that I've got the first terms. Okay, and then I'm looking at the last numbers, and we said we think the 3 and the 5 are going to work. Okay, so that's the last. 3 times 5 gives me the 15. Now I do need to pay attention to my signs. Since they both have to multiply to be a positive, they're either both positives or they're both negatives. And since they have to add up to be a positive, these have to both be positives. So now we're going to check the O and the I. All right, so this outer product is 5x. This inner product is 6x, which adds to be 11x. All right, so that is not going to work, so I'm going to strike it out. All right, so I'm going to still try the 1x and the 2x. If I switch the 3 and the 5, that's going to give me a different result. Okay, so again, I already know that the first term is the 2x squared. I know that the last term is going to give me the 15x. I'm checking the outer and inner distribution here. All right, so the outer distribution here is 3x. The inner distribution is 10x, and that can give me a 13x. So again, the signs have to both be positives. There's my factored form. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's say I want to factor 7x squared minus 4x minus 3. Okay, so again, I'm going to write down the factors of A. So the factors of 7, there aren't a lot of options, which we like. The more options, the harder it is to guess. We're going to write down the factors of C, and my C is negative 3. Okay, so I could say 1 times negative 3. I could say negative 1 times positive 3. All right, so for the A, I'm going to guess that it's the 1 and the 7. Don't really have a lot of options. And then here I'm going to guess as well. So I'm going to say, you know what, let's guess with this one. All right, so guessing. We're going to put the 1x and the 7x for our first distribution. And then we're going to say, you know what, we think it's the negative 1 and the 3. Maybe you put the negative 1 here and the positive 3 here. If that doesn't work, then I'll switch them and I'll put the positive 3 first and then the negative. So again, check the outer and inner distribution. So the outer distribution gives me a 3x. The inner distribution gives me a negative 7x. And that combines to be a negative 4x. So we got it on the first try that time. We like it when that happens. All right, let's take a look at when they start giving us more than one option. Let's say they give me 10x squared minus 36x plus 18. All right, so I'm going to write down the factors of A. So numbers that multiply to be 10, I've got 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. For the factors of C, now they have to multiply to be a positive, so they can either both be positives or they can both be negatives. But they're going to have to combine on the outer and inner distribution to be negative, so we're going to go with double negatives here. All right, so I could say negative 1 times negative 18. I could say negative 2 times negative 9. I could say negative 3 times negative 6. So the more guessing options that you have, the more tedious this can become. But my hint to you was maybe start with the numbers that are closer together. So I'm going to start with the 2 and the 5 and the negative 3 and the negative 6. If that doesn't work, then I'm going to go with the 2 and the 9. If that doesn't work, I'm going to go with the 1 and the 18. And if all three of those don't work with this, I'm going to scratch that out and then try it with the 1 and the 10s. All right, so I'm going to say I think the first distributions are going to be the 2x times the 5x. That gives me the 10x. And I'm going to put the negative 3 and the negative 6. I'm going to go negative 3, negative 6. If that doesn't work, I'll flip-flop those. All right, so check your outer and inner distribution. This is going to give me a negative 12x. That's going to give me a negative 15x. And that adds up to be negative 27x. So that doesn't work. So let's try 2x and 5x. But let's put the negative 6 first this time and the negative 3 second. Okay, so we're going to say That's going to give us negative 6x. That's going to give us negative 30x. So that adds up to being negative 36x. And there's our distribution. So remember that you have 2 tries with each one of these. You can put the negative 3 first and then the negative 6, but then you have to try the negative 6 first and then the negative 3. All right, let's try one last one. All right, so on this one, I'm going to write out my factors of A. Okay, so 2 numbers that multiply to be 2. I've got 1 times 2. I got to write out my factors that multiply to be negative 48. So because they have to multiply to be a negative, I have one of each sign. So I could say 1 times negative 48. Okay, I could also say negative 1 times positive 48. I could say 2 times negative 24. I could also say negative 2 times positive 24. I could say 3 times negative 18, negative 3 times positive 18. I could also say 4 times 12, negative 12, or I could say negative 4 times positive 12, or 6 times negative 8, or negative 6 times positive 8. So do you see here how we have a lot of different options? Okay, and I told you guys I would recommend starting with the numbers that are closer together. So let's start there. Let's start off, and we have to use the 1 and the 2 for the first distributions. Okay, I'm going to try the negative 6 and the positive 8. Okay, that outer product is going to give me an 8x. That inner product is going to give me a negative 12x, and that adds up to be negative 4x. So that doesn't work. But remember, somebody else might have put the positive 8 first, and then the negative 6 second. So you've got 2 options for each one of these. So this outer product is negative 6x. The inner product is 16x. And that adds up to be 10x. So there's our option right there. Now, if you were to use an app or something and you got an answer, it might differ from this one. That's because all of these numbers were divisible by 2. But I haven't taught you guys yet how to divide out a greatest common factor yet, so we'll deal with that later. So here would be my answer. And it is possible that sometimes you might get more than one option choice for this to work on. Okay, so that was supposed to be 16, by the way. 3 times 16. Not that we needed it, but I saw my mistake. Okay, so you'll have some homework problems tonight on these where you guys need to be showing your scratch work. If you guys just crank out answers, that's telling me that you're probably cheating, and I'll take off points. So make sure I can see your factors of A, your factors of C, and if you test something and it doesn't work, just strike it out. So that way I can still see your work, and I might give you credit for the partial work. Okay.